Hey everyone. So I was going to make this video about the new map, and I realized, that's kind of what everybody's doing. Do you really need another person telling you this map is too small and there's not enough going on? So instead of complaining about the new map, I decided to make a list of things that I think would really benefit the longevity of Battlefield 6. Kind of a wish list of things that I think the game needs to fix the feeling of dissatisfaction with a lot of the players. And I'd also like to start with a disclaimer that I am a fan of Battlefield 6. I think this game is really good. It started on a great foot, and this isn't a video meant to be complainy or whiny. These are just changes that I think would really benefit the game, just from the perspective of someone that's been playing Battlefield for 10 plus years. So with that, my first point comes to gunplay. And when it comes to gunplay in Battlefield, it has to be treated differently than basically every other arcade shooter, because the scale of Battlefield is it's so much larger than any other arena-style arcade shooter. And I think the most important thing when talking about Battlefield's gunplay is a balance of visual recoil and bloom. Now, pre-Battlefield 4, this wasn't quite as important because Battlefield was still larger than other games, but when the new generation of consoles had come out and Battlefield 4 released, and we had the smaller versions of the maps on, Xbox 360, PS3, and then the larger versions on Xbox One, PS4, the scale of Battlefield entered like an entirely new league. Suddenly, you're shooting at people that are 100 to 200 meters away with an AR. The further away your opponent is, the smaller they are, and if you're going to try to be killing people with a fully automatic weapon from that far away, this is where having low visual recoil becomes really important. Because if you're shooting at a target that is as big as an ant on your screen and you have a lot of visual recoil, it is really difficult to track that target. So what is the solution to this? Because you can't just turn down visual recoil, otherwise everybody is now playing with lasers. Well, this is where bloom comes in, and that's why I say it's got to be a balance of visual recoil and bloom. Because you need to lower visual recoil to compensate for distant gunfights, you also have to create bloom so that people can't just laser you from 200 meters away with a fully automatic weapon. Bloom is that sort of visually unperceived inaccuracy that you kind of just get used to as you play Battlefield. And what bloom does is it requires you to then use slower firing methods. You gotta, tap one shot at a time. You gotta do 3-round bursts whenever someone's at medium range. And this kind of, makes long range gunfights with a fully automatic rifle possible. But to get to the point, I think right now there's too much of a combination of both. I think there's way too much visual recoil. It works on the smaller maps, which there are plenty of right now, so maybe it doesn't stand out as much. But not only is there too much visual recoil, there's a combination of bloom mixed in there, and it makes long-range combat feel kind of infuriating at points. I'll just say it like it is. If you hop on Battlefield 4, it really feels like there's hardly any recoil at all, but the bloom makes you slow down your shots, makes you be a little bit more methodical. If you full auto someone from 100 meters away, you're not going to hit them. But the important part is you can see them the whole time. Keeping your reticle on your target is not a problem. So in short, I think Battlefield 6 could really benefit from a pretty big reduction in visual recoil and focusing more on bloom balance across guns. Now there is another issue that I noticed in the beta, and I was kind of hoping they would fix it at full release, but when you ADS with a 1X or just a red dot, your gun doesn't take up hardly any of your screen. Like, it almost feels as though you're looking down your sights with your gun at arm's length, like you're holding it as far away as possible. And you can see the difference here between Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 6, where in Battlefield 4 it actually feels like you're pulling the sight up to your face like you would actually do in real life. And obviously this is a very picky thing to complain about, but it also does contribute to your overall ability to see your target whenever your field of view within your sight is increased. Now, there's one more quick thing I want to talk about, and that's just controller balance. I don't know if you guys have seen this clip from Jack Frags. It might make you a little bit mad, but here it is.
So this is PlayStation 5 controller. Full mag, same spot with the mouse. Just switch to the mouse. If you look at the user interface, it's changed. Look at that. You actually get less recoil when you use a controller in this game.
Now I get it. There is more control with a mouse than there is with a controller. But isn't that what aim assist is for? To me, this capping of the recoil seems a little unfair, and it also seems like in the clip, the bloom is a little bit less spread out than it is for PC players. And I've also heard that when you're on an actual console, the recoil is actually even less than this. That could be incorrect, but Jack Frags is using a PS5 controller on PC, so recoil might actually be less than that for console players. Plus you tack on the aim assist and you get clips like this where I get lasered by an SMG from 70 meters away, which I feel like would not be possible for me to do with a mouse and keyboard. But with that, let's switch to my next point, which is scale of the game and just map size in general. Now, everybody's been talking about this. We all know the maps need to be bigger. I personally think the large map should be at least twice as big as Mirak Valley. Like, it's Battlefield. You're supposed to need a vehicle to get across the map, you know? And there's supposed to be a ton of verticality. You're supposed to be able to go 30 stories up in a building, take an elevator. Like, even Battlefield 2042 got that part right. For some reason, I don't know, the scale is just missing in this game. And we know it's not a technical limitation because now that RedSec's out, we see how big they can make things. But when it came to like getting video footage of this and like an example to show you, the best thing I could think of was to show you the difference between Firestorm in Battlefield 4 and Firestorm in Battlefield 6. Because maybe I'm entirely crazy, like maybe you all are gonna grill me in the comments, but for some reason Firestorm feels smaller in Battlefield 6, which is crazy because it's a clone of an old map that was already big enough. So all I could really think to do was stand in the same spot on the same map in both games and just show you the difference in perceived size, I guess, and like how big you feel compared to your surroundings. And I think these still frames, like when compared side by side, kind of express what I'm trying to show you. In general, I think they almost like took Firestorm from end to end and pushed it together a little bit so the map doesn't feel as long. But I think the core issue comes down to some game design thing that I don't really understand that pertains to scale. This might just be like a fucking tinfoil hat take, but something about the game, you just don't feel as small as you're used to feeling in a Battlefield game. And that's all I can really say. I can't offer any suggestions on how to fix it because yeah, I'm not a game designer. But yeah, I think this is the best I could do at bringing up this point. So now for my last major point. Obviously this isn't an end-all be-all list, but I think it's the things that, at least for me currently, are making the game feel a little bit frustrating and repetitive, and the reason that I can't binge this game the way I could other Battlefield games like 4 and 1. So with that, my last point is player visibility and just contrast to the environment. I think the best way I can start us off is to just have you watch this clip. So yeah, it might seem a little obvious that he was there because I zoomed in, but watch the same clip zoomed out. Basically, the only thing I could see was that guy's spot marker. And I know I'm using a 1x, but I don't have that problem in other Battlefield games. And that's because other Battlefield games use high player contrast. Like if you've ever played Counter-Strike, you'll see that there's a specific setting called boost player contrast, because it makes it easier to see the player against like the in-world environment. And there's not really much that needs to be said about this one. I think it's pretty obvious, but in some of the darker maps, or like Siege of Cairo, even whenever it's really bright outside and there's a guy down the street, you can't really see him because his character model is so flushed out by the light and he's got a lightly colored wall behind him, and it's almost impossible to see him until you die or unless he gets spotted. And then the converse happens in dark areas where somebody's sitting in a dark corner and you just can't even see him at all until he starts firing and you see his muzzle flash, but by that time you're dead. I think this is probably the easiest fix that I'm even gonna mention in this video. Player models simply need to contrast to whatever their environment they're in. Whenever a player is in a bright environment, they need a darkness boost. Whenever they're in a dark environment, they need a brightness boost. I'm also not a huge fan of the new spawn screen. It seems a little lazy with all these gray assets, whereas like in Battlefield 4, you got to see the topography of the map, and it was a little bit more colorful, I guess. And then of course you have Battlefield 1 that just completely blows all the other ones out of the water. Besides that, I think the only real issue is hit detection, but that's a pretty common thing with new Battlefield releases. Hit detection is usually pretty bad. You get killed around corners a lot, and then after, I don't know, 5 months or so, they usually fix that. It's been a lot more obvious now that RedSec has come out, and the server is under a lot more stress, so you really get to see that there's a hit detection problem, or you get shot around a corner a full second after you're undercover. But Battlefield's always been good about fixing that, so I didn't even find it worth complaining about. So what do you all think? I really enjoyed my last video watching you all argue in the comments. It's really fun to watch people go at each other's necks online. I'm slightly kidding, but on a serious note, I am actually really curious what you guys think needs to be improved, or like what you think is missing from the game. I'm personally very thankful that we've had a smooth launch. There's been no major crashes, no humongous glitches. So let me know down there if you think I'm completely fucking crazy for anything I said, or if I missed anything. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video and kind of like the points I made, please like and subscribe. Would love to see you around here again. And until next time.